Friends, not everything in church history is deep and supernatural and highbrow. Just like today, in the earliest days, they had doorkeepers and janitors, just like churches have today. In fact, in the notes at the beginning of the Canons of the Council of Laodicea, the Synod, it says this about the temples. That generally, a temple wouldn't have its own resident priest, but they would have a superintendent and a janitor. The superintendent lived nearby and, maintained the temple, and it was the job of the janitor to clean it and make sure that it was always spick and span. It says this: the temple servant opens, shuts, and cleans the sacred places, and shows to strangers its curiosities, and allows, according to the rules of the temple, those persons to offer up prayers and sacrifices to whom this is permitted, while he sends away the others. This is interesting to me because while there's not 100% agreement on when the Synod of Laodicea took place, they know it took place between 340 and 380-81, because at that time, the second major ecumenical council, the First Council of Constantinople, took place. So if there's nothing to show, nothing painted on the walls, nothing unique to suggest that the temple belongs to the living God, just like it did in Judaism, why would they need somebody to live there to show off to strangers its curiosities? Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with a plain sanctuary. An empty cross reveals a risen Lord. Very basic pews, no ornate artwork. But it makes you wonder about the modern interpretation of the second commandment, which is just absolutely brutal against anything, any representation of a painting, a statue. Everything is viewed as, oh, it's an idol. But what those people fail to explain fully is the details surrounding that specific commandment. And that during that time, people did make idols unto themselves for the purpose of worship. There's no better way to exalt the living God and make the distinction that God is alive, I am, during the time of Exodus, than to make it a clear point that you are not to have idols and other gods before me. Because the whole purpose during this time was God's introduction to his chosen people that he had just led out of bondage. And he was teaching them to trust him. Wandering in the desert, the place where resources are the sparsest, and saying, trust me, I'll make sure you have food. Trust me, I'll make sure you have something to drink. Just worship me, just love me, just do what I say. To try to apply that to today and say that anyone who has a painting of Jesus Christ hanging on their wall is somehow violating the second commandment is a gross misrepresentation of that commandment. And it shows a lack of leadership in the churches of individuals that think that way and feel that way. And it's sad because in any other subject, baseball, football, sports, Pokemon, Sonic the Hedgehog, children learn by collecting little cards and having things and people to look up to. And we wouldn't bat an eye at that. We would think that that's just fine. Unless naturally it took over their life, and then there'd be limitations set, and we would share a balance with our children about life and the proper role of everything. But when you get to the idea of the Christian faith, the idea of having a book, a card, a painting of a particularly special individual who did something heroic or meaningful for the Christian faith is a violation of commandments. I don't blame the people that feel that way. I blame the leaders who fail to properly educate themselves on church history and who fail to properly teach truth when it comes to what Christianity could look like in the life of the individual versus the doctrinal pre-commitments they have to get into the pulpits and constantly drive home. It's just an unfortunate reality. But if we're honest about this and we can have a conversation about it without attacking each other, we can promote more Christian unity. And we can celebrate the beauty of our culture that is Christianity. Because remember, in addition to it being the supernatural salvation, the redemption of mankind by God's grace, it is also a part of our daily lives. It's a religion. It's also a movement. It's also a belief system. All three of these things. Anyway, look forward to talking to you guys on the next one. Say thank you to your janitors at your fellowship halls, by the way. They are fulfilling an important task that goes all the way back to the 300s. I need your help. I'm stuck down here in these Roman catacombs. I can't get anybody to help me, to let me out. No one hears me, no matter how much I scream. Can you please just drop a few dollars in my PayPal? And maybe I can give someone a few gold coins to let me out of here?